Hi and welcome to another video from the CTAD Clinic. My name's Dr. Mike Lloyd and I'm the Clinic Director. In this video I'm going to be asking a question that's been put to me by a number of subscribers on the channel as to whether alters can touch. So this is coming from a place of personal experience for many people that they clearly have experienced this or wonder whether this is something that can take place. So from my own clinical experience, this is something that I've witnessed a number of times in the sessions over the years, and it's actually something that can be planned and organised. So as with anything else, this sort of thing is best organised and done within clinical, i.e. therapeutic settings, so that there is sort of immediate support for this, because actually, while it might be something that's wanted by a person to be touched by their alters, it can be quite distressing because it acts as a real reality check about the level of dissociation being very, very real. And especially for people that are newly diagnosed, this is the kind of thing that when it happens for the first time can be quite alarming to people, because it really sort of solidifies the fact that these other parts or alters exist. And we're talking about working within systems of other specified dissociative disorders and dissociative identity disorder, OSDD and DID, because this is where the parts actually sit and have the most influence or ability to sort of intervene. And this can take place out in the real world. So I suppose to start with, what I'm not thinking about is alters using the body to touch. So for example, if an alter comes to the front and goes and shakes somebody's hand, then clearly another person is technically being touched as if by an alter, but that's not really the case. That's really just about using the body in that way. What this question is more aimed at is whether the person or the host or the person fronting that system of the dissociation is able to feel touch from within one of those internal alters. So as if that alter is manifesting in the world and has the ability to sort of cross over and have physical touch as part of their way of being able to connect. And this is something that I've witnessed, and it's not always particularly pleasant, although if we're planning and organising it carefully, then it most certainly can be, and that would be the goal of this. So I've got two examples. The first one is this not so pleasant one, when I've been working with a person and we've been engaging in a conversation, and let's say we strayed into maybe some trauma type conversation that we hadn't necessarily planned to, because that can happen quite a lot in therapy, and the person has literally been pushed, they've been shoved, and I've sort of watched them as if they've almost been knocked to the floor. So, and they look around and they're surprised, and they look to see as if someone has actually pushed them over, and they're surprised that nobody's there. And actually what's happened is that sort of the trigger of that trauma has led to an internal force, if you like, an alter has sort of pushed that person as if to stop them talking. And that was quite a violent action. The person wasn't harmed, but it was quite alarming for them to have experience of that. So that's a very real sense that they believed absolutely firmly that they were being pushed by one of their alters, and they couldn't really understand how that could happen, and we tried to work that out. The second example is something that we do much more in the clinical session. So this is more of a therapeutic skill. So if a person, let's say, is feeling very distressed or feeling very upset about something, or they've sensed that an alter is feeling distressed or upset, and there's a need to pass on reassurance. Now outside, between myself and my loved ones and my family and friends, we might give each other a hug or just sort of hold each other, in times of great upset. That's not something that a person can do on their own, but actually what we've worked out is that it can be done. So the way I look at this is I'd ask the person to sit down on the sofa, and they put their hand out, and thinking as if another person might be there that can just hold their hand and gently squeeze for reassurance, we ask one of the internal parts for the system to come through and see if they can connect to that person, and almost as if they are holding that hand, they manifest that. And the person talks about actually feeling as if their hand has been touched, has been sort of gripped very gently. And they look quite alarmed, they look very surprised, and that's the thing that tells me that there's a reality going on here. We know that the body can retain memories. We know that the body can contain pain of past traumas and past events. So there is some system that's taking place within the body, within the brain, the manifestation of experience, that certain aspects of the brain, if sort of set in motion and triggered, can simulate a physical response. So we know that there's lots of examples in the world where there's, say, phantom limb syndrome, where people that have lost a limb through amputation or accident or something like that still feel as if their body exists and that part that's lost is contained within them. So we know that there is some apparatus within the brain within which this kind of sensory experience can take place. And all we do is we try and clinically manifest this for the sake of positive recovery or healing. So we ask the internal system to kind of come through and hold the person's hand as if they were sitting right next to them, and the person genuinely talks about feeling as if someone is actually holding their hand very gently, and they are surprised and also very relieved that it can take place if they're in that right space to do so. So we then think it can also be reversed. So an extension of this example is if that there is an alter within the system who is very distressed, and this doesn't matter whether it's OSDD or DID, if they're very distressed, the person can reach out to them as if they were simulating a hug. They can visualize that experience. We can ask sometimes the alter to be manifested, say for example, into the hand, and the person who's offering reassurance can just put their hand gently cup over and then gently give it a squeeze as if to offer comfort, reassurance, and obviously some nice, thoughtful, positive messages and helpful messages can be transmitted or spoken aloud at the same time. So again, this is very much something that should take place within clinical settings, so that there is a therapist available where, if that is possible, to support this, to sort of guide it through, to help it be done very slowly and very gently, explaining the process as it goes along, but to encourage what we know that the brain is capable of doing, to try and collaborate within the system to bring these alters and the host and the person together, so that we can actually use touch as a way of healing. Certainly in terms of acute stress or unhappiness at any moment, it's very important for many people to have touch. Now, for people who are autistic, this may not help, because for a lot of autistic people, touch is something that isn't particularly pleasant and isn't particularly wanted. So this isn't necessarily something that would take place if you're doing therapeutic work with an autistic person, unless it had all been organized and thought that that might actually be helpful. But some parts are not autistic, and actually guiding a person to, say, an autistic person with DID to reach in and be able to touch an alter and offer reassurance and comfort if that alter is not as autistic, that actually can be something that can be done, and can be quite a wonderful thing to experience as a therapist, watching this system play itself out. So I hope that very much answers the question. I mean, in a way, it's a long-winded way of saying absolutely yes, this can take place. We can deliberately manifest it within clinical sessions if we're very careful and we have organized our approach to this. But it can also take place quite by accident, often if triggered, or often if there's sort of traumatic memories coming in, and alters can feel as if they are able to touch and can touch the body. So we know that touch is an important part of healing for most people, and organising that within a DID or OSDD system that has traumatic possible experience of touch, we have to be very gentle and very careful and cautious in our approach. But to overcome the challenges of touch is a very, very important therapeutic path that we need to take. So I hope this has been a useful video. Not necessarily something that I'd encourage people to go off and try on their own, because you never know what might happen, but certainly with support and encouragement, this is something that can be done, and certainly is a hopeful message to people looking in the future as to what they may be able to achieve with their system. So yeah, please leave any comments, do all the usual stuff like subscribe and share the videos if you would like, because that's really helpful, and lots of people do benefit from that. Put any comments in the videos below. We do love answering people's questions, and we'll keep the videos coming. So in between now and the next video we do, please do take great care.